deciding to venture into a high-difficulty dungeon. They made an irreparable mistake. The level 67 wingless dragon Sebarumus, the boss of the dungeon, appeared before them. They didn't stand a chance against such a powerful being. And when the squad of heroes had already finally weakened, the dragon began the climax of the battle. The gray-haired paladin was confident that his defense skill would not be able to repel this attack this time. It seemed that hope was already lost. Suddenly, a strange green creature appeared in front of the three exhausted heroes. It turned out to be an ordinary goblin. But what was a goblin doing in a place like this? This is a high-level dungeon. How did he get here? Anyway, it doesn't matter anymore. There was no way such a weak monster could survive the fiery breath of a wingless dragon. Okay, it's just a joke. The goblin was protected by plot armor, so he had no trouble deflecting the enemy's attack. Moreover, at the same moment, he fired back. With a single swing of his mace, the goblin obliterated the dragon Sebarumus, leaving behind only its legs, tail, and a pile of meaty chunks. Realizing that a monster wouldn't just attack another monster, the heroes immediately assumed that it was probably the summoner's doing. They were right. On a hill nearby, an unknown guy stood and watched the battle with an insane smile. The main character of this story is, in real life, just a regular construction worker buried in debt. If we draw an analogy with video games, he could be compared to a goblin. He's a weakling, and the place he should be dwelling is a low-level dungeon. Obviously, he'll never be able to get out of here either. Even though there are cases where people win the lottery and become insanely rich overnight, a goblin will still remain just a goblin, no matter how much experience he gains. One day, on another workday, the guy overhears his coworkers talking. According to them, Mr. Cha, the foreman, has been so busy playing Heaven's Door that he hasn't shown up for work in weeks. They say he's managed to get a hidden class, which means success and a lot of money for him. Heaven's Door is a fully immersive virtual reality game, which has become trendy lately. The experience seems so real that it allows people to forget about reality itself. Of course, the technology is so advanced that the machines are expensive. But with countless internet cafes across the country trying to keep up with the trend, poor people like the protagonist can easily enjoy it. With all this demand, it was only a matter of time before real money started flowing into the game. In-game items have become real currency. Heaven's Door became a true game changer, and at first the protagonist loved it. Meet this guy. His in-game name is Kim Chuk-Soo's. Yeah, try saying that 3 times fast without summoning a demon. To spare our poor voice AI from having a meltdown, I'll just call him Kim Chu. What he does in Heaven's Door isn't much different from his work in real life. All he does is grind for the sake of continuing to grind. Upon first entering this game, he dreamed of becoming a legendary hero, dating a gorgeous party member, and end up getting married. Eventually, however, he became an ordinary miner. And so on another trip to the mine, he finally found something worthwhile. Advanced healing crystal. Such a thing could be exchanged for at least 300,000 won. When he obtained this mineral, a silver-haired girl suddenly approached him. She noticed that the guy is mining here every day, which could mean his skills must be pretty high by now. The girl said that further into the dungeon they were blocked by a massive rock. And while her squad members are quite strong, they are completely clueless about mining. That's why they hope an experienced miner like Kim Chu can help them. Obviously, this guy is too weak to fight monsters, but luckily for him, he won't need to. The rest of the squad will do all the dirty work. At first, this deal seemed like a good one for Kim Chu. If he joined their squad, he would be able to gain a lot of experience and possibly mine some high-level ores. But would he really be safe this deep in the dungeon? The girl who took him by the hand interrupted his thoughts. Exhorting him to go with them, she narrated that her ideal type is guys with strong arms who are into mining. Of course, after such tenderness, Kim Chu couldn't help but agree. But soon, when he saw the gray wolf in front of him, he realized that he had made a mistake in taking this venture. Even though the monster's levels were lower than expected, he was still at an even lower level than them. While the wolf pounced on him, Kim Chu had already regretted his decision 100 times. "Don't move," came a determined female voice from behind him. In the next second, all the enemies were incinerated by the salamander flame skill. Approaching the boy, a concerned level 39 mage, Catherine asked if he was all right. After thanking her, Kim Chu couldn't believe that she had actually wiped out an entire stand of gray wolves with just one shot. Wiping away her tears, the girl asked the miner not to move away from her anymore, and not to make her worry so much. Kim Chu took it as a declaration of love, and in the next few seconds had already managed to marry her and have children. In his dreams, obviously. Meanwhile, dodging the wolves' attacks, the brown-haired swordsman told the miner that there was nothing to be surprised about. The level of this dungeon was well below the level of their squad, so it's no surprise that each one of them has the power to destroy the local monsters in a single blow. If it wasn't for the suspicious ore that could only be broken at high mining levels, they would never have stuck their heads into this place in their lives. They skipped this material earlier because they had no choice. Putting points into grindy skills like mining seemed like a waste of time. That's why they need help from people like Kim Chu. This kind of statement from the swordsman made Kim Chu very angry. What right does he have to treat him like an idiot? That bum can't even mine ore without him. Walking up to the bratty guy, the guy made a point that he couldn't just ignore it. "You think I don't have combat skills?" he shrieked, jumping sharply into the air. "Fuck yeah, I don't." After these words, he began tapping the ore deposits with his pickaxe without any objection. Kim Chu is always looked down upon, and he risks his life for pocket change. He's so used to it that he's even stopped being angry about it. It pisses him off even more. Well, now he has no choice but to settle down. Just finish his work, get the money, and leave. No point in paying attention to it, it's just another normal, boring day. As soon as he thought about it, his pickaxe smashed a hole in the rocks. The sturdy rocks crumbled, and a gateway to a hidden dungeon appeared before his eyes. Unbelieving his happiness, Kim Chu shouted for joy. They will now be able to get special rewards and even change class to hidden class. "We hit the jackpot." Such words came from Kim Chu, causing smirks to appear on the faces of his teammates. The next instant, a brown-haired swordsman pounced on the guy from behind. All the boy's dreams of changing his life for the better like Mr. Cha were immediately turned to ashes. Still not realizing what had happened, he lay on the ground unable to breathe. Mocking the miner, the silver-haired girl and the dwarf asked him if he really thought they'd let him into the hidden dungeon just because he'd hit it a couple times with a pickaxe. All this time he was just following them around as they fought. Finding this dungeon was their goal from the beginning, and sharing the loot with some jerk with only a dumb mining skill is not something they're going to do. But since he still helped them a bit, the three decided not to delay his death and do it quickly. Some time passed and Kim Chu finally woke up. When he came to his senses, he found that he was still in this dungeon. At first he thought that those bastards had shown him compassion and let him live, but then it turned out that he was saved from death by the advanced healing crystal. He died and came back to life at the cost of 300,000 won. Having yelled enough, Kim Chu saw that the gate to the hidden dungeon was still open, which meant that it hadn't been cleared yet. After losing the healing crystal, he had no right to go back empty-handed. He vowed to tear their squad apart and turn his life upside down. He will become their worst nightmare. "Produce it, Almighty." Kim Chu raised on the leg and ran away inside the gate. Like a bird, he gracefully lifted himself off the ground and flew towards his life change. The first thing his face met, in fact, was the damn stairs. Who even came up with the idea of placing the stairs right outside the entrance? Be that as it may, he had entered inside the hidden dungeon and there was no turning back. Rising to his feet, the boy saw a huge goblin sitting smugly on a throne in front of him. Apparently he had gotten into a goblin sanctuary. However, goblins are pretty weak creatures. Isn't that too boring for a hidden dungeon? While thinking about it, Kim Chu accidentally stepped on someone's hand. Looking down, he saw a disheveled corpse. It turned out to be the same dwarf from the squad they had gotten to this place with. Being already dead, the dwarf used the chat to ask the boy if he could use some sort of reanimation skill. Ignoring the dwarf's pleas, Kim Chu immediately guessed that this dude was delaying pressing the Come Alive button so he wouldn't miss the hidden dungeon. He's so greedy. System alert. This is a high difficulty dungeon, well beyond your level. Please leave the dungeon immediately. Seeing this warning, Kim Chu froze with fear. At the same moment, he heard a scream. Turning his head, he saw a brown-haired swordsman in the hand of a huge creature. Hell if he knew, it might be an armored titan. And no, it turned out to be a level 80 Geiger. But what could such a creature be doing in the goblin sanctuary of an ordinary low-level dungeon? Even such strong adventurers couldn't deal with him. Now, one of them was crushed and the other was eaten by a monster. Kim Chu could barely contain his gagging from such a sight. The worst-case scenario was happening. There used to be a lot of games striving for realism, but Heaven's Door went so far as to introduce touch, and that eventually led to pain. Of course, there's a safety system in place, so damage from low or same-level monsters doesn't hurt much. But if you're attacked by a monster that's dozens of levels above you, that's a different story. Pain and injuries don't go away just because your character comes to life. They directly affect your brain. In severe cases, this can even lead to brain death or actually death. Shock-induced retirement. Kim Chu can't afford to let that happen. Yes, a real person's life is at stake right now, but no matter how much he wants to do it, Kim Chu still won't be able to help Catherine. Besides, they were the first to betray him, so he doesn't have to help them anyway. And anyway, what can a weakling like him do to help? He has an obligation to survive, and it doesn't matter that he'll essentially have to sacrifice someone else to do it. The Goblin Lord feels a kinship with your cowardice and weakness. A system window with this caption stopped Kim Chu. Glancing at the goblin sitting on the throne, the boy quietly questioned whether he had called him weak and cowardly. But Kim Chu doesn't want to be like that. He didn't choose to be powerless. If he had any strength at all, there's no way he'd run away. He wanted to find a normal job where people wouldn't look down on him. He wanted to fight monsters, not just mine rocks. Because of the debts his unknown parents left behind, he grew up unable to do any of the things he wanted to do. And now the damn monster just sits on his throne and calls him weak? He's nothing more than a useless goblin. All this fiery speech only convinced the keeper of this shrine that he was right. From now on, the Kimchu player becomes an honorary goblin, thanks to which goblins will now help him at all times. In addition, he has met the conditions that allow him to move to the hidden class. In the system window that appeared in front of the boy, a suggestion to change his class to Goblin Summoner popped up. Of course, Kimchu immediately fucking rejected the bullshit offer. However, the system spit on his opinion and turned him into a Goblin Summoner. At the same time, the monster that had already devoured all the adventurers who had entered the hidden dungeon was already ready to attack its last victim. It's too late. There's no point in running anymore. Realizing this, Kimchu activated the Goblin Summoner skill. All that pomp with which his goblin showed up only made the guy even angrier. Why the hell is an ordinary low-level monster summoned with such an effect as if it were some legendary dragon? Goblin summoning? This ability is useless, but it can still help the protagonist in this situation. He'll just throw that green asshole as bait and run away from here in the meantime. Pointing his finger at the enemy, Kimchu ordered the goblin to go forward and defeat him. Luckily for him, his opponent took the bait, which means it's time to run away. Before the boy could think about it, his goblin suddenly slashed the monster with his club, dealing 9,999,999 units of damage. His new charge had exceeded the lad's expectations a bit. Once the enemy was defeated, Kimchu gained as much experience as he had never gained in his life. In addition, he has two new skills: Feed the Goblin and Walk the Goblin. The summoned monster itself in turn also gained a lot of experience, and that experience turned out to be equivalent to what Kimchu received. Damn it, that freaking weak-looking goblin actually turned out to be a max-level monster. Meanwhile, being eaten by the monster, Catherine felt unbearable pain. Her body immediately came out of the simulation game and screamed. Hearing the screams coming from the room, the guard ran up to the girl, taking off her virtual reality goggles. He realized it was over for her. She can't recover from such a shock. She resigned. Emerging from the hidden dungeon, Kimchu let his new friend have some fun. Destroying the monsters one by one, the goblin and his master quickly raised the levels. The goblin literally tore its victims apart, leaving them no chance. Kimchu in turn simply followed him while collecting mana stones of lower-ranked monsters in parallel. Soon he had gathered so many resources that he simply ran out of space in his backpack. This Kimchuxus is a 31st level Goblin Summoner. Guy cleared the secret dungeon the moment he finished off Geiger, but the squad members who had previously betrayed him are dead. Otherwise, he would have just died trying to get back to the surface. But thanks to this green dude, he single-handedly cleared the mine dungeon. The Goblin himself has never leveled up, while his master has reached level 31. Moreover, Kimchu can't even see the characteristics of the monster he summoned. Does it even make sense that a low-ranked mob like this goblin is that strong? Maybe it's a bug? What the heck does it matter, though? If it is indeed a bug, Kimchu intends to make the most of it before it gets fixed. Real-world Nara City Bank. Due to the popularity of the game, people can exchange in-game items for cash directly through the bank. Everything, including the wolf skins, Kimchu sold for 97,001 and transferred to another account. In addition, he also decided to sell the diaphragm, heart, and other delights that fell out of Geiger's body. The amount that eventually came out stunned even the bank employee. The girl immediately ran off to find the boss, leaving Kimchu puzzled. Soon, the manager of the Nara City Bank himself was sitting across from the boy, pouring tea for him with a smile. Noticing that the tea was cold, the boy asked what business the manager had with him. Then the fat man explained that he had just found better places for him to invest his money. It would be a waste of time to just keep all that money in a current account. Nara Bank has a great investment option, and so the manager decided to offer this option to the client. Assuming he had a maximum of 1,000,000 won, Kimchu asked if a bank manager should be doing such insignificant cases. But the manager clarified with a smile that we were not talking about 1 million. Geiger's heart and membrane are valued at 230 million won at today's exchange rate. Goblin! Thanks to you, I've paid back 10% of my debt. I didn't even call you out, but you came running for your daddy? Ah, you cute little bastard. Who said goblins are ugly? You're so cute. Oh fuck, I can't lie. Kimchu said all of this with joy when he returned to the game. Of course, he was very grateful to his new friend, but at least while they were in town, the best thing for him to do would be to unsummon a goblin. But as it turns out, unsummoning this dude is impossible. The surrounding people began to stare at the boy and the ugly goblin beside him. Mockery was heard all around, clearly not giving Kimchu confidence. However, there were more than just people among the people who just wanted to laugh. Very quickly, some big guy was found who didn't like the fact that a goblin was walking the streets of the city. Patton the Annihilator from the Evaton Guild was the man's name. At first, Kimchu thought it was some famous dude, but then it turns out this buddy gave himself that name. That's too bad, because someone who calls himself an annihilator can't possibly be normal. Realizing where this was going, Kim Chu tried to explain that it wasn't a monster at all. But it was too late, and Patton the Annihilator bared his. The very next second, the Goblin swung his club. Thanks to a PK-activated mod that keeps the pain level below fainting level so that high-level players don't bully others, the big guy still survived. His character, however, was immediately departed into the next world. Patton the Annihilator got annihilated. A goblin killed a man right in the center of town. Now, if anyone finds out it belongs to Kim Chu, the guy's in trouble. "Getting toyed by a goblin, and what is this embarrassment, Patton the Annihilator?" came an unfamiliar male voice. A few more adventurers, clearly unhappy with what was going on, decided to give the goblin a fight. The situation just got a lot more complicated. There's no way the goblin is going to lose to these dudes, but the fact that he's going to kill them all is going to be an even bigger problem for Kim Chu. Asking them to wait for a while, the lad shouted that he would take care of the monster himself. But the adventurers did not want him to interfere, and so they threatened him with death if he tried to interfere. Kim Chu in turn explained that he didn't have anything like that in mind. It just seemed to him that if they were all united against one ordinary goblin, it would look terrible. "The goblin has used skill. Throw stone. Minsung the Speedmaster has died." How could it end like this? He had a maximum level goblin and a brilliant future. He thought his life at the gates of heaven would be smooth sailing. Now all he had to do was run from the angry mob. "This way." Suddenly came the old man's voice. Opening the door, the bald man advised the boy to hurry up and run inside. Kim Chu ran into the building and was finally safe. "You fucking said this way!" he shouted in panic, running out of the swinging door. "This way to your funeral," the old man replied, trying to nail him with a stick. As the boy continued to run away, the system window flashed some kind of message in front of his face. "The Goblin Lord is taken aback by your sneakiness to attack after making your enemies lower their guards. You have received 1 goblin point." At first he called him weak and cowardly. Now the bastard is calling Kim Chu a scumbag. First of all, he didn't do anything wrong. So what exactly makes him weak, cowardly, and mean-spirited? It was others who invited him into their party, betrayed him, and attacked him out of nowhere. Now he finally realized what it was that was driving him mad. He was tired of being looked down upon because of his weakness. The goblin understands him like no one else, and now they will destroy the Evaton Guild together. Meanwhile, the pair of adventurers continued to search for the fugitives, keeping surveillance from the rooftops of the buildings. Ji-hyun was confident that she could handle some goblin on her own as well, which is why she doesn't understand why In-hyuk would get involved in this as well. However, In-hyuk advised him not to let his guard down. Patton the Annihilator was the weakest in the guild, but this monster killed him with a single blow. The conversation between the two was interrupted by someone's shout. Looking around, In-hyuk saw a bald old man lying unconscious in the rubble of a building. At the same instant, he felt someone's breath behind him. Abruptly turning around, he tried to finish off the monster with his dagger. But even though the hit counted, the game system showed that it did exactly 0 damage to the enemy. This meant that the many 9s that appeared after the stone flew at his comrade were not just a bug or illusion. In that case, if he got caught in that goblin's attack, he would die. In-hyuk tried to cover himself with his daggers, though he realized he had no chance of standing up to the creature's strike. Despite this, somehow he managed to survive. As it turned out, Ji-hyun covered him in time, deflecting the direction of the enemy's club strike with a precisely fired arrow. In-hyuk still couldn't understand how such a low-ranked monster could deal millions of damage. The goblin and its summoner must be using some kind of trick. He has no idea who's trying to bully him. In that case, he'd have to have the assassin skill, the ultimate evil. This skill reduces the wielder's speed by 90%, but its every strike deals critical damage. Watching this, Ji-hyun couldn't understand why this guy was using extreme evil. I mean, he's fighting an ordinary goblin. In-hyuk now expects to finish off the goblin in 1 blow. For that, he asked Ji-hyun to help him. The girl didn't mind and activated the archer's skill, storm arrows. Ji-hyun offered to finish this clowning around before anyone saw them use these skills on a regular goblin. Well, game over. Using all his strength along with his partner, In-hyuk struck at the goblin, once again not taking away a single unit of health. As a result, the assassin was sealed into the wall by the goblin's next blow and killed. While Ji-hyun was trying to realize what had just happened, someone's dark, eerie silhouette showed itself. Then, turning her head, the girl finally realized that the monster in front of her wasn't just an ordinary monster. "Yes, I'm the one who summoned him," Kim Chu explained with a haughty smile, along with his goblin mocking the frightened girl. The girl can't understand how the goblin has so much power, because In-hyuk is one of the strongest people in the Evaton Guild. Kim Chu doesn't care about the others because the most important thing right now is that he is very angry. Ji-hyun doesn't understand her and her comrade's guilt. Kim Chu stared at her like a true pervert. It was her fault for being so irresistible. The girl was frightened and began to scream violently. Kim Chu realized that he had said something stupid and had been misunderstood. He meant something else, because the guild group had been the first to attack them, and the guy and his companion were very nervous. Someone might get the wrong idea if they see this. Kim Chu asks the goblin to gag the girl, but it was too late. The girl's screams of something hard and disgusting had spread throughout the city. They noticed someone was on the roof. Kim Chu notices that the crowd from downstairs is increasing and is watching intently. The boy asks the goblin to finish this business as soon as possible and run away. Meanwhile, the goblin has Ji-hyun pinned against the chimney and is trying to cover her mouth. The crowd of onlookers are shocked. Is the goblin who destroyed an entire guild going to rape a surviving woman? Kim Chu can hear the chatter and the mood of the crowd. He seems to be in a real mess, although he was just trying to get revenge on the Evaton Guild. But now, he's in a tight spot. The guy orders the goblin to stop the action and let the girl go. The people downstairs can't believe their ears. The man in rookie clothes orders the goblin who defeated the Evaton Guild to stop. The goblin obeys his master's orders and lets the girl go. Tears start streaming down the guy's cheeks. It's probably already over for him. Because of the great noise, people didn't really hear what the guy said, and to whom exactly. They thought that the newcomer had said that it was all over for the goblin. People as one began to cheer Kim Chu on. They wish him luck in his battle against the goblin. At this point, the guy's face changed. He doesn't understand why they're on his side because he's not some superhero, but all of a sudden it hits him. If you look closely, he never once said the goblin was his. The first time, he was kind enough to ask that the case be left to him. Afterward, he ordered the innocent girl to be released. And finally, he said it was over, but the crowd thought it was addressed to the green monster. Based on this, everyone gets the impression that he's a hero who risks his life for a girl. Oh, how lucky he is. Kim Chu turned sharply to the girl. If she doesn't tell anyone anything about his connection with the goblin, the guy promises to let her go. Otherwise, she would die in agony like her friends. Ji-hyun agrees to his terms. She will keep her mouth shut. Kim Chu is very happy, because now he has a chance to get out of this situation. The guy turned on his acting skills as much as he could. He began to publicly accuse the goblin of something. It wasn't Oscar-worthy, but it was still pretty spectacular. Kim Chu uses the goblin summoner skill, Goblin Walk. At the same moment, a large golden collar with a chain appeared around the pet's neck. The boy grabbed the other end of the chain and began pulling the goblin behind him, berating him in every way possible for the atrocities he had committed. Reaching the edge of the roof, the guy jumped off, continuing to pull his pet. Landing pompously, Kim Chu slams the goblin to the ground. His serious expression on his face enthralled those around him, while the goblin only inspires terror. Other people are surprised that the newcomer has such a rare skill, Chains of Light, and can easily hold back the monster. In fact, it's the most common skill for walking your pet, and the goblin is very happy that the owner spends his time with him. Ji-hyun has stayed on the roof and is watching what's going on. The crowd is gossiping again. Surely this guy must have at least level 50, and that's why the guild couldn't handle him. So it wasn't that the Evaton Guild was weak, but that nobody else here would have stood a chance. The guy won't be able to overpower the goblin, but using another skill, he can chase it away. Kim Chu uses a feeding skill and an appetizing sausage appears in his hand. After shouting a few heated words, the guy throws the sausage farther away. The food flies outside the gates of the city, and the goblin rushes after it at full speed. Looking at the guards, Kim Chu asks them to close the gate urgently. A hungry pet runs through the entrance gate. As soon as the goblin left, the iron grate came down behind his back with a rumble. The crowd looks on with their mouths hanging open. Kim Chu defiantly wipes the sweat from his forehead. After asking the people around him if everything was all right, the crowd began to cheer. He had actually managed to chase away that incredibly strong goblin by himself. Kim Chu breathed a sigh of relief. This should help settle everything that had happened. And not so long ago, he might have been called a psychopath who'd destroyed an entire guild. Ji-hyun walks up to the guy and tells him that all the guild members have been moved back to the Temple of Rebirth in the sacred lands of Pascal. She's the only one who knows about the relationship between him and the goblin. Kim Chu listened to the girl carefully. She will keep the promise. At this moment, Kim Chu is thinking that he can find a good use for her. He heard that in Pascal, everyone has infinite health, and there they are protected from monsters and other players. That's why the place is called the Sacred Grounds. Kim Chu looked angrily at the girl, and once again asked her to keep her mouth shut. Otherwise, he would have to kill her and put her in the Temple of Rebirth, and then kill her again and again, doing infinite damage, and he would promise her that too. Ji-hyun is terrified. She'll do as they agreed. It's been a while. Kim Chu is resting from his heroics. He is insanely proud of himself for being able to treat himself to such a beautiful room because of his good deed. Lying on the bed, he recalled recent events. He didn't have that kind of power at that moment. But if he had, would he have saved her? She was hot. Kim Chu rose abruptly from the bed. He remembered that he had gotten a goblin point from the Goblin Lord. Strange. He had gotten the class because he felt a resemblance to goblins, and now he was getting a point for being nicknamed Cunning. The guy opened his pet's skill window. All advanced skills are locked, so he has a choice of which one to learn first. Kim Chu chooses the Rally skill, completely unaware of what he's doing. Activating the skill, his goblin appeared in front of him. The guy didn't know how the skill worked, and was quite surprised to see his pet. Is it really a normal summoning skill? If they were caught together now, they would be in trouble. When the innkeeper heard the strange noise, he asked if the adventurer was all right. Kim Chu replied in a trembling voice that he was fine and not to worry. As soon as the footsteps from the door began to recede, the boy threatened the goblin at first. But as soon as he drew his club, Kim Chu began to apologize for what had just happened. After a while, the lights in the room went out. The guy looked at the goblin and pondered. Even though the goblin had done nothing, it had been mocked in every possible way, and even tried to attack him for no reason. Something similar was happening to the guy. This world is way too full of mother lovers. Next night at the tavern, the adventurers from the Evaton Guild are resting after last night's scuffle. They spotted Kim Chu, who had saved one of their guild members yesterday. The guy was visibly nervous, as this place was quite crowded, and without a goblin, he'd have his neck snapped in no time. In-hyuk thanked the guy for his help, for he had helped the girl even after they had made it clear that they were enemies. The man's look seemed to say something completely different. In-hyuk sees how nervous Ji-hyun is. He asks her to calm down, and not to be so excited because the guy didn't come with a desire to fight. The girl realizes that without the goblin, the guy doesn't stand a chance, and his lies have everyone's heads full. Visibly nervous, Kim Chu turned to the adventurers for help. Despite their attempts to kill him, he helped them. Now he wants them to help him. Assassin expected something like this, but either way the guild owes the guy a debt of gratitude and is willing to help him. Kim Chu has been in the starting city for a long time, and has already gained level 30, but the loot from any kind of activity does not enrich him enough. He asks for information on how to advance further, and these adventurers should have that information. In-hyuk guesses what he's talking about. The guy probably means Fiorendel. This information is held by a member of the guild. The old man knows everything there is to know. Kim Chu immediately recognized the trickster who wanted to trap him. The old man began to apologize for yesterday. Coughing, the old man recognized Kim Chu's strength, for he had managed to defeat the goblin single-handedly. The boy was probably even stronger than any of them. Patton couldn't believe his ears. He was really pissed off by this fact. But really, the guy is no threat at all. And if In-hyuk had attacked Kim Chu yesterday, Kim Chu would have definitely died from one blow. But let's not talk about the bad stuff. The beginner zone known as Lev consists of 5 regular dungeons. The grass area, where the slimes appear, mountains and mines zone, the dark forest zone, and so on. These dungeons, which can be accessed at any time convenient for everyone, are called open field dungeons. But if you want to leave Lev, you need to clear the raid dungeon. Unlike open field dungeons, raid dungeons have gates that open and close at set times. They have restrictions on time and number of attempts. Therefore, the last dungeon in a given area you should try after you have sufficiently pumped in this area. The most important thing is that Lev's raid dungeon only opens once a month. This is the reason why In-hyuk and his comrades are here to clarify this issue. And the fact that the guys were here means only one thing. Yesterday was the day the raid dungeon opened, but that damned goblin ruined everything. Until the next raid, they stuck in Lev. That goes for Kim Chu too. This is not good news at all, because for a level 80 boss, the guy managed to make a normal fortune. His goblin can easily clear even the stronger dungeons. But the thought of spending an entire month in this city where he can't make any money makes him sick. Kim Chu is furious. He doesn't want to wait a month. There has to be another way. But unfortunately, there's no other way out. All the high-level characters are freaking out about what happened. In-hyuk and his comrades told everything they knew. The debt was paid. The guild members began to leave the tavern. That would be the end of their day today. Ji-hyun looked worriedly at the disappointed guy. After a few seconds, the girl began to catch up with her companions, leaving Kim Chu alone. The tavern was closing, and the last customers were leaving the much-loved establishment. At this moment, the goblin was hiding behind the crates and watching everyone. Suddenly, he noticed something strange. Looking carefully at the sky, he saw faintly visible golden grains of sand falling to the ground. They began to cluster in a certain place. Suddenly, a large red gate appeared. All players on the server received a notification. Boss raid opened. It was very strange because it was supposed to happen in 30 days. In-hyuk looked thoughtfully at the marked spot. Very strange business. Kim Chu also got a system message. But how could this happen?